Emily and I are here today to give you maybe your first look at Hedge Mage, not Hedge Maze, although there are hedge mazes.
We are creating a hedge maze.
We are creating mazes. This is a new game from Floodgate coming to Kickstarter, and it is pretty thinky game.
Yes.
It's kind of feels abstract, definitely feels competitive because you can really mess with each other. And it might even give you some corridor vibes.
Yes. So what we are is we're mages that are trying to get our gnomes back. And our neighbor has stolen all our gnomes.
Yes,
and put them
as neighbors do.
In their garden. So with that, we are going to go into their garden and try to take our gnomes back. First, we have to wake them up, and then we have to put them back into the tunnel to our garden. At the same time, our neighbor may have noticed that suddenly we got a bunch of new gnomes too.
Yes.
That look quite similar to their old gnomes.
I feel like we could just keep our own gnomes and not steal each other's gnomes. But in this game, we've stolen each other's gnomes, but they're all sleeping in our gardens.
Yes.
And we have to go into one garden, but also tend to our own garden as well, because we're trying to get the gnomes out of the other garden, but we're putting
hedges into a
maze shape with some rules, mind you, into our own garden to make it more complicated for your opponent's mages to move around. Now, we played this 2-player in a higher player count game. You're going to actually just be interacting with the gardens to your left and right.
Your neighbors.
So a 3-player game has kind of got this interesting triad of players at the table. But there are 2 phases to the game.
So in each time, what we're going to do is we're going to flip over a card, and we're going to see which hedge tile we'll both place onto our home garden. And so we're placing it out and deciding, okay, I'm going to put it right here. Then I get to look and see, okay, each one when I place will give me 1 movement point. However, if I can place it in such a way where the rows and columns of where it's been placed line up with extra sigils that I've placed previously, it'll give me more movement points to use in the second half of my turn.
Yeah, the second half of the turn is when you move your mages around and potentially your gnomes. But that first phase, you are simply just placing a tile and then, like Emily said, looking at how you've arranged your tiles. And there are some detailed rules there with those glyphs or the, what did you call them? Sigils. To get X number of move points. When you move on to the next phase, then you're going to go back over to the other garden, move your mages around, carrying these gnomes, which is adorable, potentially waking them up. And this is an interesting aspect of the game because there are a number of different cards that you use in each session. You're going to use 3, 1 for each different type of gnome that gets them to wake up. So for instance, we had these cards in this one. So the purple flower gnomes are going to wake up when they are in the column of one mage, but the row of another. So this is going to happen as you move your mages around. So if you move your mages around like this, and I had mine here and here,
boom,
this one would wake up. And now when they're awake, they can actually move as well. So those movement points you get in phase 1, you get to spend those. Not, say you get 8 of them.
Sure.
You're not using just 8 split up amongst everyone. You're using 8 for each of them. Now, there is some caveats there.
Yes.
Because if you have a bunch of, like, say, purple ones woken up, you can only move 1 of each color gnome.
Yes.
So if you choose this gnome, you're not moving another purple gnome that round with those 8 points. But the whole goal is to move them and get them back into these holes, which come back to their garden.
Yes. They come back to your Gnome Sweet Gnome board.
Gnome Sweet
And then every
Gnome.
time you do it, you're going to get a bonus as well. So some of the bonuses you can get extra movement points. And again, when you use that movement goes to everybody who's moving. So both of your mages, whichever awake gnomes you have. Or you could get extra sigils to put on your hedges that you've already placed down to give you some more movement later. Or you can get this shroom spring where you actually put it down and it catapults anybody on it into an adjacent square.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you've ever played a game of Corridor, it's a game where you're moving around and you're placing walls in front of the other player. This operates in a very similar fashion, but there's also other things at play for why you want to place those walls. You want to get more movement points, so you might do that. It may not mess up your opponent too much, but you might get a lot of movement points for yourself that round. Plus, you can actually move on top of the hedges. That spring allows the mages to actually get up on the hedges, but a mage carrying a gnome can actually move up to a hedge and place them right on the hedge. And in fact, in our game, the red gnome would wake up only when on top of a hedge with any other gnome. It could be red, orange, or purple, but that's how they would wake up. And again, you want to wake those guys up because then it's just all on your mages to move them around.
And
Once you only have 2 of those, so once you wake up some gnomes, you're getting a lot more movement. And I actually achieved quite a bit more than I expected.
You did. You especially did well on, we each get our favorite gnome type of card as well. So you're looking to try to keep that type of gnome in your home garden. So you're really trying to block them from getting to those. David blocked me from getting to 2 of his pumpkins.
Yes.
So he not only got 2 points because they were still in his garden at the end, but he got 2 additional points because they were his favorite type of gnome.
Yeah, but the other ones you're trying to get back, there are some points here to score on your Gnome Sweet Gnome.
Gnome.
And you're going to get 12 if you get all the purples. And these are not cumulative, but you get up as high as you can. And I happen to also get a lot of oranges back and got 20 points there. So there's a lot of different ways to score your points, but you're effectively just trying to get your gnomes back home in this game.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions at all about this, please make them in the comments below. We just wanted to give you this first look. This is what feels like a nice light game, but I can tell you, your first time playing this, you're going to be thinking about it quite a bit because when you get those movement points, you can break up your movement a little bit. So you don't have to take one mage and go move, move, move. I moved my, say, 6 movement with him. I'm done. You can move him 2, get him into position so that then you can maybe even hand off a gnome from one mage to the other, put a gnome down on a hedge, have him move a little bit, have him jump up on another mage. That mage can then carry him over. So it's kind of like
a lot of flexibility.
A fireman's carry sort of scenario, which is a really interesting puzzle to solve. But that first game, that puzzle can be a little bit much to think about. But I'd say after my first game, I'd gotten the rhythm of it, I'd gotten the hang of it.
For sure.
But once you mix in these movement cubes, you can even get more movement.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, if you have any questions at all about it, make it in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.